The world stood still when Michael Jackson, the king of pop, died suddenly and without warning.
Are both now reporting that Michael...
Not every story fades when the cameras stop rolling. 16 years have passed since Michael Jackson's death, yet the mystery surrounding his life has only grown deeper. The answers never came easily, and with every passing year, the questions only multiplied.
What Michael Jackson's doctor said was that they had chemically castrated him, and they kept him like a castrato, anesthetizing him.
Something was captured on camera, yet the full story was never revealed. As the years passed, the silence only grew heavier, and the mysteries left behind began speaking louder than any explanation ever could.
People seem to forget or don't realize about this investigation. It was a death.
Today, we're diving into one of the most mysterious chapters in entertainment history, the life of Michael Jackson, the circumstances surrounding his death, and the questions that refuse to disappear no matter how many years pass. The world gathered on July 7, 2009, inside Los Angeles' Staples Center, now known as Crypto.com Arena, to say goodbye to the king of pop. Millions watched from around the globe as tears flowed and tributes echoed through the arena. But there was one detail many people didn't realize. Michael Jackson wasn't buried that day. His final farewell happened months later, behind closed doors, in a private September ceremony hidden from cameras and the public eye. He was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, inside the heavily secured Great Mausoleum. His crypt, located in the Holly Terrace section, remains inaccessible to the public even today. No verified footage has ever emerged from inside the mausoleum. Over the years, rumors have repeatedly surfaced claiming his tomb was opened. Recently, a viral image spread across social media, making exactly that claim. Yet no credible news organization has verified it, leading many to believe it's nothing more than a carefully crafted hoax designed to spark curiosity. So what do you think? Could there be more to the story, or is it simply another internet myth? Then came June 25, 2009, the day everything changed. Inside a rented mansion in Holmby Hills, Los Angeles, Michael Jackson died unexpectedly. According to the Los Angeles County Coroner, the official cause of death was acute propofol intoxication. But propofol wasn't the only substance found in his system. Toxicology reports also detected lorazepam and midazolam, both powerful sedatives from the benzodiazepine family. Together, the combination proved fatal. What shocked investigators wasn't just the drugs themselves, it was where they were being administered. Propofol is a surgical anesthetic intended for hospitals under constant monitoring. Yet Dr. Conrad Murray, Jackson's personal physician, admitted to giving him intravenous doses at home as a treatment for insomnia. On that final morning, another dose was administered. Minutes later, Jackson stopped breathing. Emergency crews rushed to the scene, but by then it was already too late. Since that day, documentaries, investigations, and endless debates have attempted to reconstruct his final hours. But the official cause of death has never changed. The autopsy only deepened the public's fascination. The report, issued by the Los Angeles County Coroner, spanned dozens of pages and painted a clinical picture of Jackson's physical condition. He stood approximately 5 feet 9 inches and weighed around 136 pounds, placing him in the underweight range. Investigators noted there was little food in his stomach, suggesting he hadn't eaten a full meal recently. The report also documented permanent cosmetic procedures, including tattooed eyebrows and lips, as well as pigmentation treatments on his scalp used to conceal scars left behind by the infamous 1984 Pepsi accident. Multiple injection marks were found across his body on his arms, shoulders, thighs, and hips, evidence of years of ongoing medical treatment. Media outlets rushed to dissect every detail, but the report itself remains publicly available, allowing people to draw their own conclusions. Many believe the story truly began decades earlier. In 1984, during the filming of a Pepsi commercial, Michael Jackson suffered severe burns to his scalp when pyrotechnics malfunctioned. The injuries required surgeries and years of pain management. Powerful medications, including Demerol and later OxyContin, became part of his medical treatment. Over time, reports suggested his dependence on prescription drugs intensified. By the 1990s, he was allegedly consulting multiple doctors for pain relief and sleep disorders. During Dr. Conrad Murray's trial, witnesses described a man desperate for sleep and increasingly dependent on medical intervention. The image that emerged wasn't just of a global superstar, it was of someone fighting battles the public rarely saw. Those battles eventually led to a courtroom. In 2011, after a 6-week trial in Los Angeles, Dr. Conrad Murray was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Prosecutors argued he acted with gross negligence, administering propofol in a private bedroom without proper equipment or emergency safeguards. They also claimed he delayed contacting emergency services after Jackson stopped breathing. Murray insisted Jackson may have administered the fatal dose himself while he briefly stepped away, but the jury rejected the argument. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison, though he served about 2 years before being released early due to prison overcrowding and good behavior. He later lost his medical licenses in California, Texas, and Nevada. More than a decade later, his conviction still stands. And perhaps the most heartbreaking part of all is this. While these events were unfolding behind closed doors, Michael Jackson was preparing for what many believed would be the greatest comeback in music history. In 2009, he was rehearsing relentlessly for This Is It, a planned series of 50 concerts at London's O2 Arena. The cameras captured him singing, dancing, and perfecting every detail at Staples Center. No one watching those rehearsals knew they would become his final performances and the last glimpse the world would ever get of the King of Pop. Interview 804-809. Inside the rehearsal halls of Staples Center, Michael Jackson was doing what he loved most, creating. He worked side by side with dancers, musicians, and choreographers, obsessing over every detail as he prepared for This Is It. Nothing escaped his attention. Every beat, every movement, every lighting cue had to be perfect. The rehearsal footage, later released as the documentary This Is It, captured him performing classics like Billie Jean, Human Nature, and Thriller. And what shocked many viewers was how sharp he still looked. Despite rumors that his health was failing, the footage showed a performer who remained precise, energetic, and deeply involved in shaping his comeback. His voice was steady. His movements were controlled. His creative instincts were as strong as ever. After his death, the film became a worldwide phenomenon, earning more than $260 million and becoming one of the most successful concert documentaries in history. Yet a haunting question refuses to disappear. Was Michael Jackson truly healthy enough to complete 50 sold-out shows? His autopsy later revealed low body weight and evidence of prescription drug use, fueling years of debate. No one knows what would have happened had he lived. But the footage survives, a final window into the mind of an artist still chasing perfection until the very end. Then came another headline that sent the internet into chaos. In 2025, newly unsealed court documents connected to Jeffrey Epstein spread rapidly online. Within hours, social media exploded with claims that Michael Jackson's name appeared repeatedly in the files. The reality was far less dramatic, but no less controversial. A closer examination showed that Jackson was mentioned only once. According to the documents, a witness recalled seeing him at a social gathering held at Epstein's Florida residence. That was it. There were no accusations, no allegations of misconduct, and no evidence suggesting criminal involvement of any kind. Major outlets including CNN, BBC, and the New York Times quickly clarified the facts, emphasizing that the reference was brief and entirely contextual. Yet online speculation refused to die. Viral videos, manipulated images, and AI-generated clips spread across social media, creating the illusion of a deeper connection where none had been established. The official records remain clear. Michael Jackson was mentioned in passing and nothing more. But in the age of the internet, even a single sentence can become a conspiracy. And perhaps no moment illustrates the dangers of public perception more than what happened in Berlin. November 2002, Berlin, Germany. Michael Jackson was staying at the luxurious Hotel Adlon Kempinski, just steps away from the Brandenburg Gate. Outside, thousands of fans crowded the streets below, chanting his name and hoping for even a brief glimpse of the world's most famous entertainer. Then, suddenly, he appeared on the 4th floor balcony, and within seconds, a moment intended to delight fans would become one of the most controversial images of his entire life. Interview 1043-1047. In his arms was his infant son, Prince Michael II, the child the world would later know as Blanket and eventually BG. Then came the moment that changed everything. For just a few seconds, Michael Jackson held the baby over the balcony railing while keeping his other hand firmly on the structure. The gesture was brief, but the reaction was immediate. Gasps echoed from the crowd below. Fans screamed. Photographers fired their cameras nonstop. Within hours, the images were everywhere, and by the next morning the world was locked in debate. Critics accused Jackson of recklessness. Child welfare groups voiced alarm. Suddenly, a father's impulsive attempt to share a moment with his fans became one of the most controversial images of his life. Later, Michael Jackson publicly apologized, calling it a terrible mistake. He explained that he had become overwhelmed by the excitement and never intended to put his son in danger. But the explanation couldn't erase the headlines. Even decades later, the Berlin balcony incident remains one of the defining moments in the complicated relationship between Michael Jackson, fame, and public perception. Yet some believe the chain of events that changed his life began much earlier. January 27, 1984. The Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles was filled with lights, cameras, and anticipation as Michael Jackson filmed a commercial for Pepsi Cola. The production relied heavily on pyrotechnics, sparks, fireworks, and dramatic stage effects designed to amplify his performance. Everything was going according to plan until the 7th take. Suddenly, a pyrotechnic malfunction sent a spark into Jackson's hair. Within seconds, his scalp was engulfed in flames. At first, he kept dancing, seemingly unaware of what had happened. Then chaos erupted. Crew members rushed toward him with coats and fire extinguishers as he collapsed to the stage. The fire was extinguished, but the damage had already been done. Jackson suffered second-degree burns to his scalp and was rushed to the hospital. The injuries required multiple surgeries and years of medical treatment. When footage of the accident resurfaced in 2009 through Us Weekly, millions of viewers watched in shock. Many biographers and medical experts later pointed to this incident as a turning point, a tragedy that introduced years of chronic pain, extensive treatments, and a complicated relationship with prescription medication that would shadow him for the rest of his life. Then came another chapter that divided public opinion unlike anything before. In 2003, British journalist Martin Bashir released Living with Michael Jackson, a documentary marketed as an intimate portrait of the world's most famous entertainer. Instead, it ignited controversy across the globe. Viewers argued over whether the film exposed uncomfortable truths or manipulated its subject for dramatic effect. One scene in particular became impossible to ignore. Cameras followed Michael Jackson through an antique store in Las Vegas as he wandered from room to room, pointing at furniture, artwork, and decorative pieces with childlike excitement. Over and over again, he smiled and repeated the same words. "I'll take that." To some, the moment was charming and playful. To others, it reinforced the image of an eccentric superstar disconnected from ordinary life. But as the documentary continued, the tension only grew, and so did the backlash surrounding Michael Jackson's portrayal. Interview 1339, 1344. The footage created an image that was impossible to ignore. Michael Jackson moved quickly through the store, pointing at paintings, furniture, and rare collectibles, casually saying, "I'll take that." To some viewers, it looked like impulsive spending on an unbelievable scale. To others, it was simply a wealthy superstar enjoying himself. The clip spread across television and later exploded online, becoming one of the most replayed moments from Living with Michael Jackson. But Jackson himself wasn't happy. After the documentary aired, he accused Martin Bashir of selectively editing footage and presenting events in a misleading way to create drama. Whether the sequence reflected reality or clever editing remains debated to this day. What isn't debated is its impact. The scene helped shape how millions of people viewed Michael Jackson during the final years of his life. If you've made it this far, hit the like button. It really helps the channel. But the documentary wasn't the only controversy dominating headlines. In 2005, Michael Jackson faced what would become one of the most closely watched trials in entertainment history, the People vs. Jackson. The proceedings stretched across several months and featured testimony from witnesses, investigators, and medical experts. Cameras were banned from the courtroom, meaning the world followed every twist through transcripts and news reports. Then came one testimony that instantly grabbed headlines. Gavin Arvizo, Jackson's accuser, told the court that Jackson allegedly served him wine hidden inside a Diet Coke can. Under oath, he claimed Jackson jokingly called the drink Jesus juice, a reference he associated with Christian symbolism surrounding wine. The testimony was widely reported by organizations such as BBC and NBC and quickly became one of the trial's most quoted moments. Because there were no cameras inside the courtroom, the story survives through official records and journalistic accounts. Other rumors and stories have circulated ever since, but many remain impossible to verify. What remains documented is simple. The testimony was given, the world reacted, and the phrase Jesus juice became permanently tied to one of the most controversial trials of Jackson's life. Long before the controversies, however, Michael Jackson had already changed popular culture forever. December 1983. The world had never seen anything like Thriller. Before it, music videos were usually simple, artists singing on a stage or performing inside a studio. Then Michael Jackson and director John Landis shattered the rules. Instead of releasing a standard music video, they created a 14-minute horror film complete with acting, storytelling, special effects, and cinematic production. Viewers watched as an ordinary date transformed into a nightmare, zombies emerged from the shadows, and Jackson led one of the most iconic dance sequences ever filmed. The makeup, created by Oscar-winning artist Rick Baker, added a terrifying realism that stunned audiences. The production cost more than $500,000, an enormous budget for the time, with Jackson helping finance the project himself. When Thriller premiered on MTV, it didn't just become a hit, it changed the industry forever. Music videos were no longer promotional tools. They became art. And the album behind it became something even bigger. Released in 1982, Thriller went on to become the best-selling album in music history. Estimates vary, but worldwide sales are generally placed between 70 and 100 million copies across vinyl, cassettes, CDs, and digital formats. No album has consistently matched its commercial success. Hit after hit dominated the charts. Billie Jean, Beat It, Thriller, Wanna Be Startin' Something, PYT, and The Girl Is Mine. At the 1984 Grammy Awards, the album won an astonishing 8 Grammys, including Album of the Year. Even decades later, Thriller remains the standard by which all blockbuster albums are measured, frequently recognized by Guinness World Records as the highest-selling album of all time. Then came a move that would become inseparable from his name. May 16, 1983. During the television special Motown 25, Yesterday, Today, Forever, Michael Jackson stepped onto the stage to perform Billie Jean. The audience expected greatness. They had no idea they were about to witness history. In the middle of the performance, Jackson suddenly glided backward across the stage, creating the illusion that he was moving in 2 directions at once. The crowd exploded. Although he didn't invent the moonwalk, similar moves already existed in street dance and mime. He perfected it and introduced it to a global audience. Overnight, the move became legendary. Dancers around the world tried to imitate it. None could replicate the magic of that first moment. Years later, he would create another illusion people thought was impossible. During performances of Smooth Criminal, Jackson leaned forward at an angle so extreme it appeared to defy gravity itself. Audiences assumed it had to be wires, hidden supports, or camera tricks. The truth was even more fascinating. Together with designers Michael Bush and Dennis Tompkins, Jackson helped patent a special shoe system in 1992. The shoes locked into hidden pegs built into the stage floor, allowing performers to lean far beyond normal balance limits before snapping back upright. The effect looked supernatural, but it was actually a combination of engineering, choreography, and imagination. Once again, Michael Jackson had turned innovation into spectacle. And nowhere was his imagination more visible than at Neverland Ranch. The sprawling 2,700-acre estate wasn't just a home. It was a fantasy world. Tigers named Thriller and Sabu roamed custom enclosures. Elephants, giraffes, llamas, flamingos, orangutans, crocodiles, parrots, and even a python named Muscles lived on the property. Home videos from the 1990s show Jackson feeding baby elephants and interacting with animals in ways that fascinated fans around the globe. To some, Neverland was a magical sanctuary built by someone reclaiming the childhood he never had. To others, it became a symbol of excess and mystery. After Jackson's death, the animals were gradually relocated to sanctuaries and private facilities, and the zoo eventually closed forever. Today, the animals are gone. The enclosures are empty. But the stories surrounding Neverland Ranch continued to captivate people all over the world. And then there are the files. The FBI files on Michael Jackson, hundreds of pages that fueled years of speculation, controversy, and unanswered questions. Interview 2222, 2229. After Michael Jackson's death in 2009, the FBI released more than 300 pages of documents linked to his name. The announcement immediately sparked excitement. Many expected explosive secrets, hidden scandals, or long-buried evidence that would finally answer years of speculation. But when people actually read the files, the reality was very different. The documents contained no evidence of criminal wrongdoing by Michael Jackson. Instead, they revealed that the FBI had mostly played a supporting role, assisting local law enforcement during specific situations rather than conducting a full-scale investigation into Jackson himself. The records describe several incidents, including a death threat made against him in 1992 and an extortion attempt reported in 2004. They also document cooperation between the FBI and the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office during the highly publicized 2003 to 2005 child molestation trial. For some readers, the files closed doors. For others, they opened new questions. Because even after hundreds of pages, countless headlines, and years of scrutiny, the mystery surrounding Michael Jackson never truly disappeared. If anything, the documents proved something remarkable. Few public figures in modern history have been examined so intensely, yet remained so endlessly debated. Interview 23:14/23:19. Perhaps the most surprising detail was this: despite years of controversy and relentless media attention, the FBI never launched an independent criminal investigation targeting Michael Jackson himself. When the files became public, major outlets including CNN, BBC, and Billboard reviewed the documents and reached the same conclusion. There were no hidden bombshells, no secret prosecutions, and no evidence of undisclosed criminal activity. The records painted a far less sensational picture, one of a global superstar whose life attracted extraordinary scrutiny, occasional threats, and endless controversy, but who was never pursued by federal authorities as part of a criminal case. And maybe that's why the fascination has never faded. More than 6 decades after Michael Jackson first stepped into the spotlight, the questions still haven't disappeared. Rumors continue to spread. Stories about secret tombs, hidden truths, and shocking discoveries race across the internet, each promising to reveal something the world supposedly missed. Yet the closer people look, the more elusive the answers become. Because the greatest mystery surrounding Michael Jackson may not be what was hidden, but why the world still refuses to let go. In the end, legends aren't remembered for rumors. They're remembered for what they leave behind. And while the debates may continue forever, Michael Jackson's true legacy lives somewhere far louder than speculation, in the opening beat of Billie Jean, in the shadows of Thriller, in the impossible glide of the moonwalk, and in music that continues to echo across generations. Long after the headlines fade and the mysteries are forgotten, the king of pop remains exactly where he has always been, at the center of popular culture, immortal through his art.